Welcome back to another episode of Rookie and the Vet. I'm the rookie, Dante Furco, and the vet, Darren Leeds, here for episode 3.
Yeah.
And last week, we went over the NFL draft, kind of gave our predictions as well as just breaking down where the players might end up. And now it's time
It seemed like all of our Illini players went a little bit higher than what mock drafts had them, and then kind of that was a lot of the research that we had done. But yeah, and I mean that's a positive to see some of where these guys ended up, and of course our first round top 5 draft pick, we had Devin Witherspoon going to the Seattle when we originally had him projected going. What was it?
Detroit.
7th to Detroit.
Yeah.
All right.
Six to Detroit.
Okay.
But
So one draft pick off. We were probably closest, but we knew he was going to go early.
I think the only one that I would say we kind of maybe sold a little too high was Chase Brown. Chase went, I believe, he was in the 5th round, 163rd pick to the Cincinnati Bengals, and I feel like I was thinking it was more like a 4th round. I know we looked at some mock drafts. He was falling in the 4th round, then ended up going as a 5th round pick, but we'll get to him soon.
Yep.
Let's kind of get back to Witherspoon.
Sure.
Witherspoon, I mean, he's landing in a great spot.
Yes,
Seattle's a great spot for him. It's the Legion of Boom.
Former Legion of Boom. I will say, I was going to be one of my points. I was going to say, I think, everybody from that Legion of Boom is gone.
Yes.
But they're starting to build something really, really strong in the Seattle area. And I definitely think he's going to provide some definite lockdown coverage in that secondary for them. So definitely starting to see things build. I think it's a good fit for him. As you said, Seattle, historically, great defense. And I think he's going to come in and make an instant impact. I think he's going to become one of the starting cornerbacks in that secondary. And I mean, they're starting to build up front in Seattle, so it'll be interesting to see what he kind of does this year.
Mm-hmm. And with Witherspoon, I mean, as you mentioned, I think he's a day one starter. I think he'll start right away, and then you add him into a secondary that already has Tariq Woolen. He was one of the top rookies this year at the defensive back position. And then you add Jamal Adams, who didn't even play last year because of injury. And their defense was pretty good last year. Also, you add Bobby Wagner back into their linebacking core. He spent the year over at the Rams. I mean, not a defensive back, so different discussion. But their defense is building.
Yeah.
And Devin Witherspoon is just another piece to add on to that puzzle.
Yeah. And again, I'm not big on Seattle. I don't know how their front four is, but I definitely say that secondary is becoming elite, especially with Adams, with Woolen in there as well. And I think he adds his expertise and his just, lockdown ball hawking skills to that secondary. So I don't know, maybe Seattle makes a run at the NFC West title this year.
I mean, they were a game shy last year of being a playoff team. They were waiting on... They had to beat, I think, the Rams in the last week, and they needed Detroit... Or there was something. They were so close and just short. But, I mean, they're almost there.
Yeah.
And Witherspoon's going to join a team that realistically shouldn't have had the 5th overall pick. They just got it because of the Rams trade for... Or, sorry... the Broncos trade for Russell Wilson. That's where they got that pick.
Yep.
So really, they shouldn't have been up there. Same with the Lions. But he's going into a great coaching staff. I mean, Pete Carroll, he's a great coach.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the day, he's led teams to Super Bowls. He's won a Super Bowl, been to the playoffs many, many years. And, defensive coordinators have been kind of in and out, so you don't really necessarily know if Pete Carroll is one of those... is a great defensive-minded coach.
Yep.
But it seems like it, where it doesn't matter who's in that defensive coordinator, the defense is always kind of there with that secondary. So I'm thinking he's playing a big part in that. I love the fit for Witherspoon there. I would have loved to see him with the Lions.
Yep.
I hate the Lions, but seeing him with Kirby Joseph would have been awesome. And I think the Lions we're kind of shocked at that 6th pick too because they traded back.
And I think, that would have just given us more fuel to even talk about with 2 former Illini players on the same team. And, Kirby Joseph going in his 2nd year and then bringing in Devin Witherspoon for his rookie year definitely would have helped to kind of elevate his game a little bit as well, kind of give him some perspective on just how different that play is going from college into the pros. But definitely, I'm sure they still keep in touch and everything like that. So,
of course. What I think, I wonder if they're looking back regretting it now, but the Lions traded Jeff Okudah. Possibly preparing for Devin Witherspoon at the 6th spot. I mean, I assume no, because he had kind of been an issue with the Lions in the secondary. But he was a top 3 pick, and they traded him right before the draft. So I'm wondering if they thought they were going to get Witherspoon at the 6th pick, and now they're shut down a cornerback.
I think they did. And also what this showed me, him going to Seattle, was Witherspoon was high up there on a lot of other teams' draft boards.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, definitely speaks volumes to this young man. Great player. Definitely great addition to Seattle secondary. So excited to see how he's going to do.
I mean, a little more onto Seattle. From what I read is they were preparing to take Richardson with that 5 pick, Anthony Richardson that is, to back up Geno, learn behind Geno, and then eventually take over. And the Colts took him at the 4 spot, and I don't think they panicked with Witherspoon, but he was like the next best option, it seemed like. But, I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's a great fit for him. He'll shine there, and hopefully he doesn't have many big games against the Vikings or Bears. But I did look up. We'll talk about it once we get through this, but there's a bunch of matchups with Illinois players in the NFL. But before we get to that, the next guy taken for Illinois, Jartavius, or better known as Quan Martin, to the Commanders at 47.
Yeah, and that was a little bit higher than we had, too. I think we had him going...
End of 2nd round.
Yeah.
Like right at the end of the 2nd round.
And I think we originally projected him going to the 49ers, which, again, would have been a great fit. But Washington also, I think, is a good fit for him. Their defense is definitely starting to build things over there. Solid defense. And so, I mean, like we were talking about before we started rolling here, they've got a lot of good young players over there. Definitely, I think he can compete for a starting job over in Washington. And I think the big question mark for that team is just who's going to lead that offense going into this year.
I mean, it's probably going to be Sam Howell. I mean, I know offensive, it's not going to really affect Quan, but I mean, it's a great point to bring up. It's probably going to be Sam Howell.
Right.
The UNC guy from last year. Came in one game and somehow dominated the Cowboys defense.
Yeah, I remember that.
Which was pretty good. Dominated. And the Cowboys needed that win because they had a chance at getting the one, or winning. I forget if it was getting the 1 seed, winning the AFC East. There was something that was like on the line, and they just fumbled against the Commanders.
Yeah. So
but there's so many issues with the Commanders starting from the top down. But Ron Rivera is a great coach.
Oh, yeah.
And Jartavius is going into a great system. And like you said, the defense is good. I mean, Chase Young's good. Who knows what his future is there. You have a lot of guys on that on the defensive line that's going to make his job a little bit easier since, I mean, it's going to make it easier to defend in the secondary because he's constantly getting pressured. May get some picks because the opposing quarterback's throwing up some tough balls. And
definitely kind of the opposite of what we were saying with the Witherspoon situation, where Seattle has that good secondary, not so great up front, where Washington has been pretty strong up front, and now they're building that secondary. I think Quan Martin's going to be a great addition there. Definitely also has that ball hawking ability. And so, you got those big guys up front. You get those QB pressures going on. Quarterback's doing some stupid stuff with the football, and I think Quan Martin is going to come in and definitely give a pretty good run for his rookie season.
I do wonder if he'll be kind of like an opening day starter kind of guy.
I could see that. I could also see, we'll see what happens once they start up their rookie mini camps and everything like that.
Should be soon. I'm looking at their depth chart, and they have a blank spot in their safety position, which could end up being Jartavius Martin. I'll be curious though, because I could see him being flexed to the corner position.
Yeah.
And they do have Kendall Fuller, Benjamin St. Juste, I believe that's how you pronounce it. So there's definitely room for him to start on that roster.
Yeah.
And I mean, it'd just be another great story to have another Illinois player, another defensive player, make an impact in their rookie year at that defensive back position.
And actually, we were talking on draft night, that first round. Going back to Devin Witherspoon, the highest Illinois player taken in the draft since what year?
Kevin Hardy. I think, Kevin Hardy of...
Was it in the 80s or something like that?
I believe it was like 1993.
Okay.
Maybe 1995.
But definitely like 20, 30 years, something like that.
Yeah, it's been a little while.
Significant for Illinois football, for sure.
And you just add... Ryan Walters is gone now. He's over at Purdue as the head coach. But what he was able to do with these defensive backs... And also giving Aaron Henry credit. He, defensive backs coach now... he's a defensive coordinator. Those two are just... If you are a defensive back and you see what Illinois is able to do, no matter what star you are, like how do you not want to go play for that?
Yeah. I mean, Devin Witherspoon was a 0-star recruit and top 5 draft pick in this year's draft. So definitely, I think, speaks volume to what the coaching staff is doing over at Illinois, especially those defensive coaches, along with Brett Bielema taking the reins of the entire team. But Illinois is building something. Defensive has been great. Offense has kind of been that lackluster. But Chase Brown definitely shined this year. I think they're going to miss him next year. And let's talk about his brother, actually.
Yeah, I was just about to bring that up. Sidney Brown drafted to the Eagles at 66th. The Eagles are just stacking up, and Sidney Brown is joining a really good team.
And do we think he can also come in and become a starter?
I don't know. I would say no because... to start, I would say no, but I would also say there's a possibility because the Eagles lost C.J. Gardner-Johnson.
Yep.
I would say definitely if they lost Darius Slay, too. There was a while where their Eagles were on the verge of either trading him or releasing him. Because I believe he was in... I can't remember if he was going into free agency or if he was kind of in that final year of his contract, but he's a big contract.
Yeah, and I was going to say, I think it all boiled down to money with Darius Slay. But yeah, able to retain him. But again, a good program to come in, learn under a little bit if he's not going to be a day one starter. But very strong defense over there in Philadelphia. And I mean, you got the NFC East, so going against Dak Prescott, Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Sam Howell.
May not be too hard.
So... But potential for him to kind of shine a little bit when he's given his shot even.
Yeah. I mean, they went to Super Bowl last year.
Yeah.
Like, just whether you are going to get some minutes or... I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, you want to be playing every minute possible. But being able to get drafted to a team like that is awesome.
Yeah. And, I mean, that offense, super high-powered, so you're going to get a ton of reps and some good experience going against Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith,
AJ
Brown.
I mean, they're
trying to blanking on who they have at their running back position.
DeAndre Swift.
That's right.
Yep, they just traded for him, which is just another. The Eagles killed the draft in general, just the way they were able to steal players at certain spots. And I mean, I think Sidney fell in a good spot. I think he was that 60 to 70 range, maybe going up in the mid-70s, just because there were some defensive backs that I think were well-deserved going above him. But Sidney's a dog. I mean, he's a great player. He's that guy you 100% want in your locker room because, you know, just listening to so many of his stories with him and his brother, how they grew up, he's the fighter you want where there's more to life, or more to the feel, and he's built so much character, and he's just the guy you want to draft because he's going to fight for you until the end. And it's a great guy to have as a teammate.
And I thought interesting, I know they had some good coverage on the Browns during the draft. But essentially, one of their big motivators for getting into the league is so they can take care of their mom and take care of their family. And it's not all about buying sports cars and big houses and like fancy jewelry and stuff like that. But really love the stories that they had for those two guys on draft nights this last week.
Yep. And I mean, going from Sydney to Chase.
And I did not know they were twin brothers.
Yeah.
Born 2 minutes apart. That was another thing that I thought was, because I would have thought that Sydney was a little bit older, at least by a year or so. But no, twin brothers.
And when, I mean, I wasn't even here yet, but right now you could easily tell them apart, or at least I can. But before, they both had long hair.
Yeah.
And now Chase's hair is short. It's nice trimmed down. And Sydney's got like his man bun.
Yep.
And it's a little longer, so you can easily tell them apart. But like I look back at pictures and they look the same.
Yeah.
Just the same. And I would not, if I was doing media back then at those interviews and they didn't tell me, I probably wouldn't have gotten it right.
Yeah.
Of who is who. They just look so similar, same size, same build, just two different positions though, polar opposite positions.
Right.
But two guys you want on your roster. And Chase Brown, he went a little later as the 163rd pick to the Bengals. Bengals fell in the AFC Championship last year to the Chiefs. And I mean, they went to the Super Bowl the year before. I think he's in a great position. He's with Joe Burrow.
Yep.
I mean, who wouldn't want to play with Joe Burrow? And then
Joe Mixon is possibly on his way out of Cincinnati. So, I mean, right now I think they've got Samaje Perine.
Yep.
And
he was getting older.
Yeah.
Too. So I mean,
that's about it.
He has the opportunity.
Depth at running back. So
yeah. I don't think I don't think in any way he has the chance to. I mean, I don't want to say I don't think in any way, but I don't think he's in the position to be like an opening day starter or
think like third down back potential. Maybe.
Yeah. I think he could fall into a Perine role where like he's coming in on those long where they need a catch, or I just don't know. I think it's going to depend on what happens with Mixon.
Yeah.
I mean, they talked about his contract's good size. He wants a larger one, too, heading into his next contract. Doesn't seem like the Bengals want to do it. It's hard with a running back to do that.
Yep.
And they're starting to question what they want to do. Ezekiel Elliott's been throwing the conversation to go to the Bengals, too. So, I mean, they have a good running back room. But where does Chase Brown fit in? I'm not sure. I think we're going to figure out. And one thing I do want to point out is I think Chase Brown could be used kind of in a slot position too. I also think he could be a good kick returner, punt returner.
Yeah, I can see that.
I always never understood. Well, I guess I understood because he's our star running back. I always saw Chase Brown take. I'm almost positive it was Chase Brown. I always remember because two people wear two for Illinois. One defensive player and Chase Brown a running back. So I was always from a distance, but I would see him taking catching punt returns, kick returns, whatever. Maybe it was for a special time, special place, but I think he could fit into a kick return role. He's fast, quick, able to move, and could take you the whole field, and he break some tackles.
Yeah, but definitely like to see him on that offense rather than on special teams, but. You know, wherever you can fit, wherever they can find a use for your skills, I definitely think I think he's got some potential for them to be maybe that second string running back or the backup running back for the Bengals. I mean, again, it depends on how camp goes, what happens with other players. I don't know. Is it crazy to say I think he's better than Samaje Perine? Like, possibly. I mean, he's been old. He's, he stepped up for Joe Mixon when Mixon missed a couple games last year, and he had some decent games, but I just don't think he's got it every week. Chase is younger, put up monster games in college. I think the only thing that hurt him was that touchdown potential, and so, I mean, given the opportunity, I think he could shine in Cincinnati. Yeah,
I think with Perine, though, where he excels is when on the screen pass. He's great catching the screen and getting yards for Cincinnati. He's also a great pass catcher.
Yeah.
And he's done a pretty good job filling in for Mixon. I don't know how long they keep him, though. That's a big question. I can't remember exactly how old he is. but I feel like he's been in the league forever.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong. It just feels like he's been in the league for a while. He's an Oklahoma running back.
Right.
So is Mixon, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so is Mixon. But I want to say P. Ryan was there with Baker, which, I mean, wouldn't be that old, but it just feels like P. Ryan's been in the league for a while.
I mean, running backs, depending on what they've done in college, they come with a lot of wear and tear on them. And, yeah, I mean, you put yourself in the league for 5 years and you're going to get banged up a little bit as well. But, I mean, there's a reason he's not a starting running back. So, I don't know. Maybe Chase Brown comes in.
Hey, I'm hoping he is.
Impresses in camp, shows out, and maybe he gets that nod from the coaching staff there.
Yeah, I'm hoping he is. I think he's a good running back. At the end of the day, I think he could really make an impact with that team. Something I want to point out, I mentioned it earlier. So this upcoming season, Illinois versus Illinois matchups in the NFL. The Bengals are taking on the Seahawks. So you're going to have Chase versus Witherspoon. Maybe Witherspoon tackles Chase Brown. There's a chance of that. Commanders take on the Seahawks. Would be Quan versus Witherspoon. Then you have Eagles versus the Commanders twice. And that's going to be twice a year, every year. Sydney versus Quan. They'll probably never be on the field at the same time unless it's special teams. But that's an Illinois versus Illinois matchup. Then you have Eagles versus the Seahawks. So Sydney versus Witherspoon. And then going into the 2024 season, just I believe two, other than Commanders taking on Eagles, that's every year. Eagles taking on the Bengals. So in 2024, you're going to get a Brown versus Brown matchup. And I mean, they're both going to be on the field at the same time.
Yep.
Sydney on defense, Chase on offense, which I think will be awesome. And I am sure the whole family will be out for that one.
Hopefully that's a storyline, maybe like a Sunday night, Monday night kind of matchup. I know they kind of dive a little bit deeper into some like backgrounds with players during those games compared to, say, you know, just an afternoon game on a Sunday. But I always love seeing those little stories that they do and player connections and stuff like that. And, you know, so-and-so was a ball boy for this team and that's where he ended up getting drafted and stuff like that. But always love those little, you know, human interest pieces.
Of course. And then just finally in 2024, Commanders taking on the Bengals, which would be Quan versus Chase.
Yep.
So just excited to see some Illinois versus Illinois players. And then also I wanted to bring up an Central Illinois football player, Nick Broeker, drafted to the Buffalo Bills. That was in the 7th round. He's going to block for Josh Allen.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to run a lot, just back and forth. But the places he goes in the pocket, just able to extend the field with his legs. And Broeker graduated 2019. Helped Sacred Heart Griffin to an 8-3 record in that fall of 2018, his senior year. And I was able to speak with him this week, and we'll take a listen. What was the ultimate reason, you decided to declare for the NFL draft despite being able to, return for another year at Ole Miss?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I had a COVID year. I just think, looking back on it, played 4 years, had a lot of tape, good tape. So didn't want to take another year, maybe risk getting injured. And also, had done so much that I didn't know really what else there was to accomplish.
Mm-hmm. Was there any, as the NFL draft rolled around, was there any anxiety as the rounds continued to go on and you hadn't heard your name yet?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as you said, I mean, it kind of gets a little stressful and it kind of keeps going on and you haven't been selected yet. But thankfully I got, put in the right position.
Do you ever get, because obviously I wouldn't know kind of that process, but as the draft's kind of going on, were you hearing from teams at all? Like, hey, if, we're hoping to maybe take you with one of these upcoming picks, or was it up until the Bills called that, you had kind of felt like maybe you were going to get picked soon?
Yeah, I mean, there were some teams that kind of reached out throughout the draft, but nobody really was ever like, hey, if we get to this point, we're going to take you. And nothing like that for me.
Gotcha. So when you finally did get that phone call by the Bills and then you heard your name on the TV, what was kind of going through your head?
I mean, it was kind of crazy to think about when it was all happening. I mean, it honestly didn't really sit with me until like afterwards what was going on, receiving this lifelong dream and everything. But yeah, it's definitely a really cool moment, a really cool phone call.
And how excited are you to, join the Buffalo Bills and head out to Buffalo, New York?
I'm really excited. I mean, a team that's had a lot of success recently, competing for a Super Bowl, and just definitely a winning culture.
Adding on to that, how exciting is it to be able to block for not just any quarterback, but Josh Allen, who's among the best of the best right now in football.
Yeah, I mean, talking about an MVP caliber quarterback, a top quarterback in the NFL. I mean, that'd be really fun, and definitely be really cool to see him every day.
Have you spoken to any of Bills players yet, or any other people who were drafted in this year's class with you?
A little bit with Osiris Torrance. Just been kind of on some Zooms with him lately, going over things with the O-line staff, but not quite yet. I mean, obviously, we'll all be there pretty soon. I know Dawson Knox, so it'll be cool to see him again.
Nice, that's awesome. What have you kind of heard about that Buffalo area, as well as the Bills Mafia, who they love their players and they'll always have kind of their players back.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be really cool to be in that fan base just because it's such a different, it's not like you're in New York or LA. I mean, Buffalo's really just got the Bills. I mean, the Sabres are there as well, but Bills is really what it is. So it'll be really cool to kind of be with that fan base and the whole atmosphere on game day.
Yeah. So how much did, Sacred Heart Griffin and Coach Leonard prepare you, for the position you are in now, heading into the NFL, successful career at Ole Miss, and, your future in football?
Yeah, I mean, they helped me a lot, just kind of some of the life lessons that they preach, and kind of the schedule we had. It was pretty similar to a college schedule. So once I got there, I didn't really have to really learn how to navigate certain things because it was also similar.
Mm-hmm. I know it's a little cold in the Illinois area, but are you ready for that Buffalo cold? It's something until you get there. You never, as someone who grew up in New York, you don't know it until you get there.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a little different. I mean, like you said, Illinois is pretty brutal in the winter months, but Buffalo is a whole different animal.
Well, best of luck to Broeker. Buffalo Bills, definitely high-powered offense.
Yeah.
Definitely should get a lot of reps in there as well. But yeah, working with Josh Allen, going to be exciting. And best of luck to him. He's got Latavius Murray now.
Yes, he does.
So he's going to be blocking for him.
I'll have to give Latavius a call. I have his number in my phone.
That's right. I forgot that you guys know each other.
Yes, I did an interview with him last year. It was so funny because I was actually in a Wendy's drive-through when he called, and because I had reached out to him, I was working on a project, asked if he would help me with an interview. I guess if he would let me interview him for a piece I was working. I've met him before too, multiple times, and I reach out, and then I guess I put my number at the end of the message, and I was just sitting in Wendy's drive-through, and he called me. He's like, hey, it's Latavius. I was like, Latavius who? And he's like, oh, it's Latavius Murray. I was like, oh, I totally forgot. How you doing? Yada, yada. We got to talking. So that was a funny story. But yes, he's joining Latavius out there. Josh Allen. I told him you got to pack a jacket. It's going to be cold.
Yeah.
It's going to be cold in New York. The fans are crazy. But definitely he's got to hit the wing spots.
Yeah.
Some of the best wings are in Buffalo.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. And let's talk about the players who weren't drafted in the NFL, but Illinois players who were signed as free agents. We've got Tommy DeVito going over to the New York Giants.
Yep.
Yes or no, does he get the backup spot behind Daniels?
No. I don't even think he makes the opening day roster.
Okay.
And all due respect to the situation, I think there's quarterbacks on that roster that I think will make it over him. I mean, they have Tyrod Taylor behind Daniel Jones, who, I mean, yes, Tyrod Taylor is not as great of a quarterback anymore, but he's also more well-established. Sure. I'd love to see DeVito make this opening day roster. I mean, it'd be so cool. Illinois, I mean, he was at Syracuse, too. He's a Jersey boy, so that New York Giants isn't too far away. I'm sure that played in his decision since he got to pick where he ended up, but I don't know. I think New York's like the perfect spot for him, too. Especially, him and Tyrod Taylor are very similar in their able to run, able to pass, kind of. I mean, Daniel Jones, too, but Daniel Jones is like 6'5", that guy. So, I mean, it's a little different. But I don't know.
All right.
I don't know how much he would see the field in New York.
All right. Alex Pihlstrom, offensive line to the New York Saints.
New Orleans Saints?
What? Yeah, sorry. You talk about New York.
It's all good.
My bad.
I think that's a good spot for him. I think he can play. Pihlstrom's big guy and able to block. He's not the guy you want to go up against on the defensive line. On the defensive line. Him on the offensive line. I think he could make an opening day lineup.
Okay.
I think so.
Calvin Avery, defensive line, Minnesota Vikings, your team.
I do really like this pickup. I think the Vikings were very spotty with the draft, but the people they picked up in the undrafted free agency period, pretty good. And he'll probably go at that nose tackle spot, defensive line, but he's good. He was great off the line of scrimmage last year for Illinois. He was, next to that, just their defensive line in general last year, Illinois was great. So you can't go wrong there. I think he can make an instant impact. Especially the Vikings are in the process of kind of sending away a lot of guys. In terms of releasing them or trading them. So, who knows? I think he could make an opening day lineup.
All right. Kendall Smith, defensive back, Washington Commanders again.
Yep. He's joining Quan.
Yeah.
Which would be awesome for him. Who knows? I think he'll make that 53-man roster when it comes down to it. But, who doesn't want an Illinois defensive back at this point?
Yeah. All right, Isaac Darkangelo, linebacker, Detroit Lions.
I'm pretty sure he's a Detroit kid too, maybe Michigan, but which technically same thing. But I believe he was very close to Detroit growing up. I feel like I read a lot of things about that and saw that on Twitter. I don't know. I feel like all these guys have these conversations before they're signing. Like, do I have this possibility?
Yeah.
Is there a good chance of me making this 53-man roster? Darkangelo's good. He was up there on the team in tackles. He may have led it for all I know. But he's a good guy at the linebacker position. He's got that build. He's quick. I'm trying to think of someone he kind of reminds me of. He's not as big as Luke Kuechly, but he's able to move around that linebacker position like Luke Kuechly was for Carolina. If I had to guess, I would say I don't think he makes the 53-man roster, but he would be a great practice squad guy that you could bring up eventually.
Okay. And then Alex Paljewski, Denver Broncos. Yeah,
so Paczewski is good pickup for Denver. I think he was like a fringe end of the draft kind of guy. I didn't project him to get drafted, but I think he was. He's like he got his experience at Illinois, and Brett Bielema was known for producing very good offensive linemen.
And they need an offensive line in Denver. Russell Wilson, I think, was one of the most sacked quarterbacks this last season, and Denver. I don't know what happened. I think there was all the hype around them after getting Russell Wilson, and that was a very disappointing season for the Denver faithful.
Yeah. I think it's a good fit. We'll see what happens, but he seems like the kind of style where he will make the roster. Sean Payton, too, new head coach there.
That's right.
Could be a good fit for him. He had great play from his offensive lineman in New Orleans. I think he makes the 53-man roster.
Okay.
We've seen a lot of, at least I see constantly, because Illinois is updating us on stuff like this, but they produce a lot of good undrafted signings of players. Like, they end up making good careers in the NFL.
Okay. All right, so I guess we will find out come training camp time, and definitely we're going to keep tabs on how these players are doing. If they are making some of these final 53-man roster spots. And I think that'd be awesome if we can have, about a dozen or so Illini players in the NFL as either starters or backups. So will be very interesting this NFL season.
Yeah, OTA's beginning. That'll wrap it up here on The Rookie and the Vet. You can find us, depending on where you're listening now, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, as well as other podcast streaming platforms. If you're not watching us on video, you can check out our video on YouTube. If you want to see how we interact, what the studio looks like, really, whatever. You're more of a visual person, that's another option as well. Post stuff on our social medias.
Yeah, if you got questions, reach out. we'll do our best to answer them or get an answer for you. So would love a little bit more viewer interaction. And definitely the plan is to bring some guests in eventually once we really get going.
Yeah.
Maybe have Bielema in here. Maybe be able to do some Zoom interviews with some of these guys. So
yeah, definitely. I'm excited for whatever the future holds. Hopefully we get some, like you said, some players and coaches in, talk to them, pick their brains, because, you know, they have the stories that we want to hear.
Right.
I love hearing those stories, too. You know, whenever especially when I do sit-down interviews, I'm just talking, and it's more relaxed. I'm not standing, just kind of with the camera in their face. And
where you've only got a couple minutes post-game
and they feel
like
more
that.
comfortable to talk. That's when you get the best kind of storytelling from them.
All right.
You just sit there and amaze, and especially so many of these people have so many crazy stories that we want to hear and we want everybody else to hear.
Cool.
So yeah, that'll wrap it up here on the Rookie and the Vet, and we'll see you next time.